What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the second album by Gorilla Zoe. Basically, this project is called Don't Feed the Animals, and it came out in the winter of 2009. So I look after this particular project. This is a pretty quality album here. Definitely, it's actually going to get a classic. So I look after this particular album. This is a classic album here. I would definitely have to say it's kind of a page turn of a project as well. Definitely a pretty good conduit for some of the styles that just kind of happened. Kind of came out in like an awkward time for Relative as far as like Atlanta music was kind of happening around this particular time. And just in 2008, you had folks like, Rocco and Jeezy and some of those type folks, but those were kind of more rooted in like 2008 type sounds that still felt like mid 2000s, late 2000s type fare. But just the difference between this particular album, which is from Atlanta, Girls, those from Atlanta, pitches like that, when you just think about 5, 6 months before this with like the huge albums like by Jeezy and T.I., which would be Recession and Paper Trail, some of those type pitches, and then Ludacris's Theater of the Mind. It just felt like the switch up to this particular stuff here changed pretty vastly, and this is just a pretty stark difference just because Gorilla Zoe was not really biting Jeezy or anything close to that. He really was like a trailblazer on this particular product, and it was just an excellent type concept kind of getting some of this because a lot of this was like precursors and just overall Kickstarters, like some of the stuff that would happen like the 2010s between the stuff that Future and Migos were doing, Travis Scott, some of those type folks. Gorilla was one of the first ones to really uh, Gorilla was one of the first ones to really start using auto tune for like rappers kind of doing that. I mean, T Pain was doing it like the 2000s, but he was one of the first rap type ones to kind of blur like the lines between rap music, trap music, and kind of trap pop R&B type stuff that kind of happened here. There's just several songs where Gorilla particularly does it, and the thing about it is he pulls it off extremely well. When he particularly nailed it, it was just a great conduit, just kind of going from like more traditional kind of 2000s albums like the Carter 3, The Recession, Self Made by Rocco, Paper Trail by T.I., some of these type ones, Trilla by Rick Ross, some of these type ones from 2008. It was just a different pitch. Pretty much like it was definitely kind of a breath of fresh air as far as those pitches going to happen. Definitely, I'd say a classic album here. Kind of underappreciated just than the tone behind it. I mean, this did get to the third single, which was pretty excellent just because Gorillaz was more low key. I think if he had had another album like this, he might have actually been able to damn near became a household name kind of released in 2009 and 2007, 2008. Gorilla was definitely one of the bigger front runners. He wasn't quite as big as like Lil Wayne, Rick Ross, Jeezy, some of those type folks, but he was definitely a serviceable type dude in terms of like he just was. I mean, I would say in terms of like full blown hits, he might have been mildly underhanded, but this was definitely a great follow up that just was kind of unexpected and out of nowhere. That's it. Was just kind of a pitch. Just kind of looking after like the sort of stuff that he did, just being able to say that. I mean, because I do feel like Welcome to the Zoo was a great classic kind of debut album and pitches like that. I gave that album like a 10 out of 10 back in April. Plus, he had a pretty rock solid Boys in the Hood album from 2007. That was an excellent type pitch, but it was just kind of the concept that Grozo really found his wings and was just able to do it and help set off some trends that continue to kind of happen even nowadays. So it's just kind of a pitch, just looking back as far as like 2008, 2009, just seeing some of that, just him having like the staple of being able to help set some trends as far as those pitches kind of happen. But yes, it's a pretty commercial album. The thing about this particular album, also wise in particular, I'd have to say is just the fact that it had singles that were marketed to like pop rap radio. This is kind of like Future's Pluto before that particularly happened, just 3 years sooner. A lot of good kind of roots of that in particular, as far as that would kind of happen to songs like Lost and Echo and Hell of a Life and So Sick. Some of those type ones just felt like they were probably amongst like more southern hip hop type formats, just more kind of just in like a certain marketing. I would say that these would have been the songs that you would have heard on like a daily basis in like makeshift and kind of target type music. I would definitely say it's kind of the makeshift of this blue collar type fare, 10 o'clock in the morning. I do feel like songs like Echo, Lost, and some of these ones, So Sick, some of these type pitches. And there are other ones that are auto tuned, just pretty radio ready just to go. It's just interesting that Gorilla Zoe kind of dropped off like a makeshift type album because I did feel like there were traces of that on Welcome to the Zoo, or it wasn't. I mean, it was kind of like it was a trap album. Welcome to the Zoo was, but it also had the pitch of just kind of being more of like something for this like blue collar, just in the sense of you got to get money even if you do have to work like a standard job, not so much just full blown being like hustle type mentality. It just had some makeshift songs on there that were kind of conduits for just kind of getting to the money, just not just essentially kind of being more hustle mentality like other rappers kind of had. This one just has more of an embrace upon pop type fare, makeshift Target type music and Walmart type music and some of those type pitches, just as far as that particular kind of happens, just standard blue collar living, which is a good pitch. to look after it. I mean, the thing about Grills though is to how he nails it is just the fact that it doesn't really sell out just within that pitch. It's not like it's a soft core kind of weak album or anything like that. So it's an excellent type pitch to kind of get that. And the thing about it is some of the folks that do some of these productions on here is like Zaytoven, which you wouldn't expect Zaytoven to kind of be on like more kind of pop and makeshift kind of blue collar type fare. Drumma Boy kind of does some of this. Some of these type folks that are just more traditional, kind of hardcore rap type producers actually pull off some good radio grabs and a lot of just standard blue collar type appeal. So it's a good pitch for that. But yeah, this is an excellently produced album. So three singles. The first single would be Lost. This is a great song here. And basically, Lost is kind of like a ghostly kind of trailblazer trap haunt of a song. I'd have to say it's like an early style of Future and Migos and 2010s trap. I'd have to say about this one, good brisk kind of local walk around type music kind of gets. So there's definitely be some nice ones to kind of hear October, November as the weather's starting to get cooler. Some pitches like that. Go pick up some Taco Bell, some pitches, some of that type fare, getting like burritos, donuts, some of that typeness, kind of get frozen pizza, some of that type good stuff. Just be able to have pick up some swishers, just smoke with your pals. It's more, this really feels like a local type one, not so much like commerce as much as just like local activity, the standard, just hop and bop typeness, just maybe hitting up the mailbox and those type pitches, standard type fare. It's real brisk type weather. It's kind of an interesting song for girls though, because it just kind of came out of nowhere. I remember when this song came out and it was just, folks kind of felt like, what was this really Gorillaz though, just within the pitch? They thought he was maybe possibly biting like Lil Wayne, who was starting to get into auto tune also around that time. But it was just an interesting pitch because it was just a very dynamic song as to how that particular kind of went. Very different from the sort of stuff. I mean, Gorillaz though did do his hooks on Welcome to the Zoo, but this one's just, it had a lot of radio type appeal. And this is definitely one that has like, I mean, it kind of reminds me of like just kind of like the torment of like so like moody type music, something emo or something alternative with just within that pitch, but also like pop, just a pop rap kind of grab. So it's just a good pitch for that. Said a lot of this has this is there's not many songs like this on here. It's almost like horrorcore, almost like alternative, but this has like a good type pitch of kind of delving into that territory. But yeah, it's just a nice song. What it is the second single. Now this is a song I go back with. Definitely appreciate this album quite a bit. This is an album that was pretty, I did appreciate this album a lot back in the day. Just a real excellent type one. Plenty of songs on here within that pitch. What it is like a snappy and balmy kind of summer trap pep. I'd have to say about this one. Just really appreciate the overall this exuberantness of this particular beat or this particular song, and just a lot of these other ones on here that have some of that appeal. I do like the overall feel good type vibes of this particular album. This is like, it's definitely some trap pep to kind of get here. It's like a vintage kind of late 2000s Atlanta sound, I'd have to say. Just kind of a conduit once again between like, folks like, Young Dro, Rocco, some of those type folks from 2007, 2008, and like T.I. and Jeezy leftover remnants. And then like this song has a good radio appeal about it. It's just an overall pretty glowy song, I'd say. So it's just good pitch, kind of get some of that here. It's a real frenetic type one, just an overall type fun song, I'd say. Just within the pitch behind it, it really feels like a peppy type one where you're just gonna smoke hella good, and even if you don't, just kind of be in a relatively kind of exuberant type mood, just be able to have some good times, just appreciate, go get bent, something like that. Just have good, just standard day activity type fare, just having some good summer times. So Rick Ross and this cat named Colossus are on this particular song. So it's a good feature to kind of get Rick Ross on here. There are some good big name guests on here. There's like a cat named Young Chris, who I want to say was on Meek Mill's House Party song from Dream Chasers, is on here. Gucci Mane and OJ the Juice Man are on here, and Rick Ross, and I think there's like a cat JC. I want to say he did like a hook on Welcome to the Zoo. So there's some folks on here as far as those pitches kind of happen. Ebony Love and Roxy Reynolds, who are on the Chick song Talk Back. We'll get to that, but yeah, some good pitches there. Echoes the third single. This is another surprise hit kind of radio grab. Real nice one to kind of get here. Really affable type one. It's like a big pop rap kind of highlight, I would feel like, about this one. Great trap radio grab to kind of get just in that sense. There's something that kind of keeps like that trap late 2000. I mean, the fact that this was late 2000s trap, but this was kind of like one of those type ones where I feel like this is like the grassroots of like something that kind of had like an early burn type of just an early burn type of atmosphere for the sort of sound that Future, Migos, some of those type folks would wind up doing just years later, I'd have to say. But it's a pretty good pitch to have like an early bird type one to kind of get here. It's like an underappreciated today type tune, really, just within the aspect. I mean, it does have like over 30 million plays on Spotify. It's a good type one to kind of get, but this doesn't seem as frequent that it kind of gets played on the radio. I want to say it might have been like a top 30 single on the Billboard. I know maybe even top 50. I mean, Grozo did not really get humongously on the charts, but he did have some songs that did have some of that appeal that at least did good for like the relative sense. This is like a good trap makeshift song to kind of get here. Like I was saying, this is very dredgy to kind of get. This is like the sort of song like something like How to Love by Lil Wayne, that this is something you'd hear in the car just on a rainy kind of blue collar type day, pitches like that, just standard makeshift kind of dredge, some of that type of PL, this but just within a trap type sense is good concept for that. Surprise hit that Gorilla Zoe kind of had this particular one in them. It's just an excellent type favorite, kind of get some of that. But this album does not really lose like its edge about it. I mean, it may not have as many feral type ones. If you are looking for like a vintage kind of stock, this vicious type song like Hood Nigga, that's about the only real thing it doesn't have on here. I'd probably say like songs like I'm Dumb and possibly like Untamed Gorilla come relatively close, but there's really like that's about one of the few things that this project just doesn't have. It's just another like dynamite type of. I mean, this album is definitely dynamite, but in terms of like a vicious type club type one like Hood Nigga, that's about. But yeah, so yeah, just to be able to say, but yeah, there's definitely some dredge on here, definitely some makeshift kind of just standard Target commerce pitches like that, Starbucks Target commerce, some of those type pitches just within the makeshift type commute, just that to say. But there's also plenty of good trap moments and nightclub moments. So yeah, basically out of 14 songs in this particular album, the only song I don't recommend on here would just be Shit on Them. Just talk about that one. This one is just kind of, it's just a little bit more awkward of a song just within the pitch behind it. Just kind of felt like a more flaky and kind of static type song to kind of get. Production fair was not that good on here either. I mean, it kind of reminded me of something that Migos would have done, like a more in between type moment. Just kind of one, just had a little bit of bop and bounce to it, but not nearly enough. Just kind of felt like it's kind of a haphazard type song that just didn't really have as much kind of conjunction about it, and just overall like more synchronized. Just it's not quite as effortless as most of the rest of this album kind of was. But that's really the only dud on here. So this album gets a 10 out of 10. Just to be able to say we're just gonna go in on the rest of this project, just to be able to say some of the viciousness about it. But to talk about another blue collar one, I would definitely say Hell of a Life with Gucci Mane and OJ the Juice Man is another good immediate pick for that. It's like a woozy kind of late 2000s trailblaze gem to kind of get some more this type pitch to kind of have within that. Something very similar to Echo and So Sick, some of those type ones, but this has like the aspect of kind of being a good conduit for liking trap music and liking hardcore rap or Atlanta sound, but still having like standard day to day type job just within the pitch, working at, places like Home Depot, some of those type places, or, Staples, some of those type places, just to be able to get, you know, like Gap or some of those type of stores. But just would look after like this is like a good relative makeshift type song to kind of get here relative within a yeah, it's like a good relative makeshift song to kind of get here just within the sense behind it. I mean, it's kind of like a meet you halfway type tone for having like that trap edginess, but just also within the makeshift of just like I was saying, blue collar type conduits. And this is like Echo and like the trap sense. I'd have to say a good concept for that, and it's a pretty good radio grab to kind of get here. So it's just good aspect behind that. Gucci Mane doing a makeshift type song is interesting. It's the same thing with OJ Juice Man. I would not expect him to kind of be on a song like this just within the pitch behind. It's not to say that they don't fit the song, but it's just an interesting aspect to kind of have some of them. It's kind of in more target commerce, just something like that. It's just kind of a good pitch to kind of see what they would do with the more kind of just more workaday type songs. Good pitch for that. Now look, after I'm Dumb, it's pretty excellent highlight. This is one of the best songs on this particular album. I'd have to say it's like a rock hard kind of nightclub blazing turn up. I would definitely feel like about this one. Has a wicked hook on here. Gorilla Zoe kind of switches back and forth. Some of these hooks have auto tune on here, but Gorilla Zoe does these hooks and they're pretty. They're a lot of these are severely vicious. Just a lot of sing songable type ones that just have a lot of fun factor. There's like a quick pace kind of dance snarl about this particular one. Good song to get some ladies twerked just within that relative pitch. Just real vicious type one. Probably the most turned up song on this particular album, damn near I'd have to say. There's like a good smoke good and go nuts this particular song kind of have. There definitely need to be more songs like this on this album. I'm not complaining too big because I do like the overall versatility of this product and all the things that it delivers upon. But I definitely feel like if you are looking for more, I mean, this is probably the closest thing to Hood Nigga, like I was saying. And it's probably like the closest thing to Hood Nigga, like I was saying, I would look after it. But if you are looking for more just like standard hardcore rap, that's about the only thing. If you come into this, if you really love Welcome to the Zoo and you're expecting like just like a sequel to that in like a traditional sense, it does not have as much full blown of that caliber. It does really try some new tricks on here, and it's an evolution of that. It was trailblazing like some new trends that kind of happened throughout decades and more, just being able to say. But throughout the 2010s decade and further, I'd have to say, but I just look after it like I'm Dumb at least has like some vicious qualities about it. Man Eye is a pretty quality one, as well as like a catchy kind of late 2000s trap in between moments. I would feel like about this one. This song has some relative dredge, but it's fun with it just in the approach of how it does it. And it's like a nice one to get errands done and smoke to as far as those pitches kind of happen. So this is just Like this is kind of one of those ones like I know from like Welcome to the Zoo, but just kind of in a more like just kind of upbeat and just a more kind of paced and upbeat, kind of snappy, rickety type sense. I'd have to say just then the tone behind him is just a good real in between type moment to kind of get here. So it's just good pitch for some of that. Good job about it, just making Aaron's running kind of fun as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just some good concepts for that. Pretty nice piano beat and overall affable type vibes about it. So Sick is a quality one as well as like a stock kind of trap pop radio grab. I'd have to say about this one goes great with Echo and Hell of a Life, like I was saying, and this has some great marketability about it. And this is a pretty good glossed out gem to kind of get here. This just feels like a kind of just floaty type one. Just kind of appreciate the whips and pitches like that. Just kind of cruise around to some of that type fare. It's maybe almost nightbound, I'd have to say, just within the aspect behind it, but almost kind of like a sleepy type song, but just within the aspect of just picking up like maybe a pizza, something like that. Some of those type fares, just makeshift type dredge, just within the aspect behind it, but just some good aspects. I'd also say it could probably be for like some syrupy and kind of more sleepy mornings as far as those pitches kind of happen. It's real good standard pop rap dredge as far as those pitches kind of happen. Good makeshift type song. It's excellent that Grozo nails so many of these, I'd have to say. Talkback is a quality one. It's like a good sequel to Juice Box, I'd have to say, from his 2007 album. Good pitch. It's about the closest thing to like that relative snap of that particular surprise hit song, I'd have to say. It's like a nice late 2000s club fog about this particular one. This reminds me of like a Drummer Boy beat, I'd have to say, and this is some pretty stock heat on here, I'd have to suppose, and it's like an overall nice one. It's a good concept for some of that. I feel like, once again, in the more standard traditional type sense, it's about the close. I mean, there are a few songs in here, Talk Back, Untamed Gorilla, I'm Dumb, some of those type pitches that retain some of Gorilla's 2007 vibes, but this is about one of the ones from like this vintage vibes from like old Gorilla, I'd have to say. I guess another one that kind of has that 2000 Gorilla type fare is Hood Clap. It's not to say like 2007 Gorilla is better, it's just kind of the pitch that, this is a pop rap type album, but it nails it pretty well, I'd say. So it's this good pitch. So it's like a glaring kind of 2007 I'd have to say. This reminds me of You Don't Know Me from that particular album, just without the Danny Kane singers on there. I'd have to say it's like an in-between kind of club noise. I'd have to say, I would say Hood Clap is more in-between kind of club noise. I would definitely feel like it's a catchy kind of social jive about this particular song. It's just an overall pretty dope one. So this just takes it back to more 2007 I'd have to say, just within the pitch behind it. It's more standard nightclub type dredge. Just reminds me of like a drummer boy type beat, one of those type folks. Can't think of some other ones. Just more kind of folks that would have produced for like Jeezy's Recession or like Rocco's Self-Made, some of those type albums, like Blood Raw's album from 2008, some of those type pitches. It's more late this more late 2000s type fare. Just reminds more of 2008, 2007. It's a good pitch behind that. Dope Boy's a pretty quality one to kind of get here. It's like a peppy kind of get turnt type song. This reminds me of 2007 but it also just reminds me of like recent to like late 2000s, 2009 I'd have to say. It's like a basic kind of nightclub bounce, I'd have to say, with like a sing-song snarl about this particular one. This is just an overall good buzzer to kind of get here. So this just reminds me of something that Lil Wayne would have done on like Dedication 3 or like a more the Carter 3 type era where he was using auto tune and pitches like that. It's more hot topic type sound just than that pitch with like the standard Atlanta kind of trap sound, I'd have to say. So the more Atlanta type trap sound, I'd have to say, just within the pitch behind it. But it's a real Apple type one. This when I was talking about the 2007 I mean the 2009 the stuff that he was doing with auto tune, this more pop rap type appeal works extremely well. So it's not to say as if it's a comparison. It's just kind of concept that both versions of Girls work pretty excellently. I mean, he kind of has multiple styles and they work just within the extremity of how it kind of happens with this. It's just an excellent type fare. Just being able to say songs like Dope Boy, songs like Man Eye, songs like I'm Dumb, songs like I Got It, Watch Me, some of these type ones that have these auto tune on there, songs like What It Is and Lost, some of these type pitches. I mean, this new particular style just has like its particular flavor. It's kind of, I want to say, just within the pitch behind it, it almost might be a disappointment because I don't know if King Kong from 2011 particularly had that sound. That one was not as large as like his first two albums, but just to say within that relative type pitch that this was just kind of this was just a left field type album that just was kind of like a home run type pitch that just kind of came out of nowhere and just had like a huge had a huge appeal of success, and it was kind of it just kind of came as a surprise as to all the damage that this particular product kind of wound up doing. It's just an excellent type pitch behind it, especially in like the Atlanta sound, I'd have to say. But Untamed Gorilla is a pretty quality one as well as like a more traditional kind of late 2000s nightclub pounder, I'd have to say about this one. Nice promo hook by this cat JC on here, I'd have to say, and it's like a throwback kind of 2007 zone. I'd have to say this song slaps pretty well. So it's just a nice one. Kind of I feel like it takes it back to like an album cut from Welcome to the Zoo. I'd have to say just within that pitch, just standard type fare. This reminds me of like 2008 Rocco, 2008 Jeezy, some of those type folks, just in particular, just more kind of aspects just behind that. The affability as far as those pitches kind of happen. I Got It's a pretty quality one, as well as like a sing-songy kind of glitzy club sparkle about this particular one. It's like a nice night pop. The song is like some nice night pop rap. I'd have to say good concert for some of those just past, like, once again, kind of similar to So Sick. I'd have to say I Got It's another one that just kind of feels like some pop rap and like the after effects of like past 7 o'clock p.m. Just appreciating like Demon Time, but just kind of being more makeshift and blue collar with it. I'd have to say it's like an excellent vibe with like the same edge that like the 2007 album kind of has this within particular. So Grozo doesn't sell out or lose like its edginess on this particular album. This is like a pretty good casual gem to kind of get here. It's a lot of affability about this project. Just handles like, you know, folks like Tupac, Eminem, Tech Nine, some of these type folks kind of blur the lines between pop rap and just being able to nail like edginess also in the aspect. Jeezy, some of these type folks, Ti is just a good pitch, but yeah, Grozo was one that crossed over into that territory, but you know he just the unfortunate thing was just King Kong didn't nail it quite as well, which kind of he lost some footing there. But it's just kind of, I do think that's probably an excellent album. And Watch Me is a quality one. It's like a gnarled kind of flashy turn up, I'd have to say, and this goes well with I Got It. I would definitely feel like this is like a glossy but more edgy kind of song with great radio appeal, I'd have to say, and this song just overall has some late bite. So Watch Me is just kind of some glissy kind of club blitz of a song, I'd have to say here. Just a good affable type one to kind of marry in a nightclub as far as those pitches kind of happen. This has that pop rap type appeal, but just kind of just feels like a more traditional, almost kind of a pseudo blend of like pop rap with like some relative kind of, it's kind of like a pseudo blend of like some pop rap with like a more traditional rap type territory. I'd have to say within it was a good approach behind that. Probably like the closest thing if you want something like Lost or Echo with something more of like I'm Dumb or like Untamed Gorilla, some of those type ones I'd have to say. But yeah, like I was saying, there's not tons of real vicious type songs that like standard club thump like I'm Dumb or some of those type ones, but it's just good pitch. So yeah, this album gets a 10 out of 10. The Soldier Scar, I'm going to give a 10 out of 10 also, just because the trailblazing appeal of this product was very vicious and just high grade. I'd have to say all these ones on here, plenty of good. There's all these makeshift type songs, these blue collar kind of target commerce pitches like that. I'd have to say Echo and Lost and So Sick and some of these type ones. I'd say I Got It. Some of these type ones, Hell of a Life, plenty of good radio grabs just for like more makeshift commerce, whether it's brunch time, Waffle House commerce, some of those type ones. After Hours Dredge, a lot of these just have that appeal. There are some good traditional Gorilla type bops on here like Hood Clap, Talk Back, Untamed Gorilla, I'm Dumb, some of these type ones. It does have some of that type of flex and nightclub glitz for like some nightclub glitz and pitches like that. I had to say that this is overall, you know, just what I'd say is this got some overall bite about it. This is very inspired. This has a lot of good fun gloss and its overall pep, and just the aptitude of this particular product is just very glitzy and its overall appeal. And I'd say so it's a good overall. It has some great bite about it and this overall pizzazz that works extremely well. Good pitch behind that. So I look after just being able to say, in terms of the future, like Gorilla has really not oftenly been around as much. I do want to review King Kong from 2011. I want to see about that particular project. I did not mess with that project as much. I was kind of expecting Gorilla to get back to the territory that he had with this album and Welcome to the Zoo. But it just, that one was, I mean, that's a good album. It definitely tried some EDM on there. I remember it had some relative craziness, had Lil Jon on there, some pitches like that, but it just didn't stack up in terms of like the overall commercial bite, and like I said, it lost Gorilla some footing, and he just didn't drop albums after that. But he did have plenty of mixtapes. There was like a month in February 2010 where Gorilla dropped a mixtape every day of that month. So he pretty much has like over 30 mixtapes or something like that. I'd have to say there's plenty of these. I want to get to some 2007 Gorilla. I want to review one of those mixtapes, maybe 2008 Gorilla as well. Plenty of these are going to happen. So I'd say I'm definitely going to review King Kong pitches like that. But this is a classic and kind of important kind of trailblazing album that set off some trends for like the 2010s and further. I'd have to say auto tune really works. The auto tune and makeshift stuff works extremely well on here. I'd have to say, and this is pretty much like a smash hit type album that just is underappreciated nowadays.